Wow. Season 4, here we go.
Season 4, action.
Would you believe that the first ever CSN3M episode was October 31st, 2019? I just checked earlier today.
Halloween of 2019.
2019.
So pre-COVID.
PC.
Wow, that's crazy. That's going to be 5 years this year.
5 years.
So
insane.
Can I tell you that, wow, that kind of takes me back. So the podcast was an idea that I had been working on and I journaled about while Allison and I were in Africa. So in 2019, we went to Africa, we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and then we went on safari in the Serengeti.
So cool.
And that trip was like August into September of that year. And what was so crazy was on the mountain, no technology, no cell service. It's what it took to get me to not work. And even
Just
then I
alone
still
with your
worked.
thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. And what was so crazy though was you'd hike for like 12 hours and then it got dark at like by 6 at the latest. And so you'd eat some food and then you'd go into your tent. And we had those little tents that you couldn't stand up in. And again, no fires allowed on the mountain. It's like a natural mountain only. So no fires, no oxygen masks. Like you just suck it up and go get it. And by the time, the first day it's in the 70s, but by day 3, it's in the 30s. The day before we summited it, when we woke up, it was -12. I mean, it's Africa. You don't think that, but you're sleeping. Yeah. And we're sleeping in a tent with like barely any cover of any kind. But so you'd crawl into your tent after 12 hours of hiking and a dinner and you couldn't stand up. So you're laying down and it's dark and there's no technology. And so you'd go to sleep at like 6 o'clock. And each night I would pull out this little journal I had brought with me and I would write down some of the words that we learned in their language that day, just so I could remember them to try and talk to the guides some. And I'd reflect on, some of the things I would say, like what we did, where we were at and all of that. But then I started to really think a lot about the business. That was coming off of a period where I was putting in legitimately 100-hour work weeks. And I don't think people understand what 100-hour work weeks look like. It's when someone says that, they usually aren't being honest.
Yeah.
Legitimate 100-hour work weeks. And I remember telling Allison, one, that, I needed to start to work on my work-life balance because I always told myself, oh, well, I'm just like someone who stays up late. Like I just have all that energy. I was falling asleep at 6:30. When I didn't have that constant barrage of things, I was able to actually relax and I felt less stressed, and that was really cool. So it was a big change for me personally, but a part of my journaling was actually the podcast, was thinking about ways that if I am going to try and not see 70 hours a week of patients, how can I start to create content that will help people? I need to start to capture some of my messages. I've said so many things, so many different ways repetitively. I need to find a place. And that's where the podcast was born. So I came back and started to research podcast equipment and started working on it. And now that you said it, yeah, Halloween 2019 and then COVID.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
We made it out. Well, so I have to say, you're too humble to admit it, but I am so glad that the podcast exists because you have this presence and you have this like way of explaining things and like just way of like being with people that would be so wasted if it was just that one-to-one connection, which is so valuable, right? You still have this one-to-one connection with a lot of your clients and you've been counseling them for years, but we all deserve a little bit of Andrew.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And so now that we have this podcast, it's so awesome because your message gets to live on and you don't have to physically be there to be able to spread all of the just knowledge that you've been able to accumulate all the years. So I'm grateful that we're here. I'm grateful that we're 5 years in.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And 10 years in business this past August, which is insane.
That's absurd to me. When we passed that 10-year mark, it kind of blew my mind. It's really cool to see all the things. I mean, it's like you said with the podcast, this is going to be season 4, episode 1. And we did 52, 26, 12. Those were the episode counts for each of the seasons. Maybe we might have snuck in more episodes in season 3. I think we might have 15, but the plan was 12. And then I think we ended up with a bunch of people that we wanted to, but to your point, 10 years in business, and it's like all the stories, all the networks, all the things. And when I think back on this podcast, season 1 was Andrew rants. They were all 10 to 15 minutes long, core thoughts, topics, and things that I, as to your point, was saying one-on-one, 70 hours a week every day for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I needed to get them out. I needed to have them. And it's funny because, I mean, think about how many of those are trainings and things that we've built on internally, because they work. They're those aha moments.
Yes.
And then I remember season 2 was in 2021. And so I tried to do a podcast a week during COVID. That was sort of the goal. And then it was a lot to do every week, but it was great. It was fun, and I wanted to do it. And then season 2, I wanted to start to, honestly, I got tired of hearing myself talk, if I'm being honest.
No.
Yeah, I know. It can happen, believe me. Even I get tired of me. I'm a lot. I don't know if you know that, but I'm a lot. And it can be a lot to be a lot, you know? It's just a lot. But anyway, so season 2 was kind of this reflection of, I had all these rants and I had all these one-liners, and that was great. I also was during a time where all of us were feeling very isolated. So it was super easy for me to, go to one of the offices where no one's around, put a little sound barrier around me and just like record into the microphone. But then season 2 was when the world was starting to open back up. And so I wanted to connect with other professionals. And so I started to reach out to a lot of our colleagues and started to interview some of our team members and our favorite trainers and physical therapists. And we interviewed, the COO of Genetic Direction and all these different, powerhouse names and people that we had a pleasure of working with. And I feel like it was a really good way to, one, spread the health, which is what we're always trying to do on this podcast, but also reconnect with other professionals on the other side of one of the most insane and chaotic experiences any of us will ever know.
Crazy.
And so season 2 was very much that. And what I loved about season 2 was the evolution. And the evolution is thanks to you, because the first half of season 2 was me on Zoom meetings, chatting with people from the house, again, trying to get back into the flow. And then you started to take the social media aspect of this company very seriously. And in working on leveling up, we brought Seth in, and Seth started to film for us.
Shout out Seth.
Hey, Seth, appreciate you, brother. And he's, obviously great content creator. He's been responsible for so much of the photo and media and videography. If you scroll our website, if you go on our Instagrams, you're gonna see something Seth.
He knows how to make us look pretty.
He does.
And we got to thank him for
that. And that's exactly. I'm 33 now. That can be a lot. It's not always easy, This hair doesn't do itself. But but it's to say the second half of that season went from being sort of a Zoom welcome back to the world to an in-person back and forth.
Remember, we interviewed Auburn Weissensale.
From
Pitt Athletics.
We had Johnny Patrician from Pitt football that year.
We got into some sports nutrition. We got to talk to some doctors. It was amazing.
We had a great season. And then season 3, we kind of carried that over, but the switch that year was what I would call like almost the commitment to a long form, which is instead of the little 10-minute episodes, we said, hey, we're going to do one a month. We're going to really go in. And so we really did, like most of our episodes were 45 to even 90 minutes last year. So they were a little bit more Joe Rogan. I might have been getting ahead of myself a little bit. I don't know if I quite have his charisma. I got 20 years to find it. So, we'll work on it. I'll keep you posted. There. But it's to say they were longer, and we covered a lot of really good topics. I mean, when we think about, Women's Health 2024 with, Dr. Emily Scott.
I have to say, I learned so much in that episode. I was like, wow, what we don't learn in sex ed, this is amazing.
That was one of my favorite parts of last season. And as you know, obviously you know me, you know the behind the scenes better than most. I pride myself on being a very knowledgeable person and being a great mediator of information, but I love learning. I'm a massive nerd, and I'm constantly trying to learn. And so last season, what was neat is there was a lot of learning for me, which that was kind of the goal of last season, is I didn't want to just be the know-it-all. And I was also trying to work on being a better listener and asking better questions and really being more of a podcast host instead of a podcast presence, so to speak. And so I feel like last season, we got to interview Dr. Sobel and we got to interview Dr. Gentili. We had quite a few really amazing episodes that really went deep on, again, the proactive model of care and how to, modern takes on PCOS and, again, women's health. And the list goes on, but it's really cool to think that, 52, 26, 12, I think we ended up sneaking in 3 more, so 15. Quick math, is that 93 episodes, 94 episodes in 3 years?
You might be close to 100.
We're coming up on
do some quick math there.
This season we will hit 100.
Wow, it's amazing.
But it's cool to think how it changed over the year.
It feels so appropriate too that we kind of started to branch out and start talking to these other practitioners, because we've always referred to ourselves as the quarterback of health and wellness. And that means we need to bring in other members of the team. And you did an excellent job of that because, again, we need to be kind of the center point that we kind of address all of the aspects of health and wellness, nutrition, sleep, making sure that they're doing a job of managing their medications and all of those things. Like we help them with the habits of all of that, but we need to be pulling in all those professionals to make sure that they have the right plan in place. And so I feel like that was very much what was going on with pulling in those other professionals for the podcast. So that was cool.
I agree. And it's funny. It's almost like you can hear the podcast has evolved as our vision has evolved. Mm-hmm. It's the first podcast was very much the Andrew show. And that's not a bad thing, but it's to say that the case specific nutrition is not the Andrew show. I don't know if you've been around lately, but we've got a team of absolute BA professionals that are just killing it. We've got the best names in nutrition, but to your point, we also have a collaborative care team. We've got other practitioners around us that just allow us to continue to level up what we do. And so it's kind of neat to think about how the podcast sort of, it's almost been a reflection of what we've been trying to do as a company. And that's part of the reason why for all of you long-term listeners, we didn't do the intro this time.
Because intro dies today.
Yep, it dies today. No hello and welcome from Andrew. We're not greeting it that way. Season 4 is going to be different. Season 4 is going to be different. One, we're going to get back to video like this. We're going to try and keep them half hour long. And we are going to get back to some rants. And so I know that was something that you and the marketing team talked to me about, was some of our preferred episodes are having me do what I do best. And we're not going to go exclusively back to that, but I'm excited to be able to do it. And I've also gotten better clarity on my message and what I want to tell and how I want to tell it. And we can combine it with all the other media that we've built to really do that. So I think there's going to be some good deep dives where, I might do a little 1 or 2 minute reel on a topic and then do a 20-minute episode that goes deeper into said topic. Mm-hmm. This season, I hope to be interviewed by you and by maybe some others a little bit. I think that's going to be a piece of this. And then we are still going to do some interviews as well. So it'll be a blend of things this year, but I think it's just going to be a bit better balanced. And I think that it's going to be very intentional. And what I promise the listeners is that it's definitely going to be topics that are right here, right now in your face. The other thing I'll say out loud is this is an invite for all of you listening. Message us your topic requests. Because I have our teams doing that. We're keeping an eye on social media for trends. And so we're working on speaking to the things that are happening, but we want to be that for you. So if you're hearing all this stuff and you're super confused by something, tell us and we're going to straighten it out for you. And we'll do it in the case specific way.
So much going on right now in health and wellness, especially with the explosion of social media. There's people talking about Ozempic. There's people talking about balancing your hormones, whatever that means. And I feel like it's really confusing for people out there. So I'm really happy that we can be here and be a resource for evidence-based information. And so with that, I think you kind of alluded to this earlier, but I'm really interested in hearing you kind of expand upon what's been happening at Case Specific and how some of the more recent iterations. Hi, Apollo.
Oh, we got a visitor. Oh, we have a visitor. We're going to be doing some therapy dog pets while we talk. That's fine. Hi, buddy.
So tell us a little bit about what's been happening at Case Specific, how we're hoping to kind of iterate the current model of care and where that's going.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, when we think about how the podcast evolved from me being the 100-hour workaholic that tried to do everything and the podcast sounded that way, to now the podcast being sort of the culmination of our best talent and the people around us. And I think one of the things that we can really kind of dig into as Case Specific has sort of grown and evolved, what it's clarified for me is the need we have for a different model of care. And so, one of the things that most people can understand once we explain it this way is we currently have in the United States what you would call a reactive model of care. And so if you've got a problem, if something's wrong, great, go to the MedExpress or go to the ER or get a schedule a visit with your doctor or your specialist. And we have some of the best specialists and facilities in the world for that. I'm not here to poo-poo the acute and reactive model of care, but let's call it what it is. It's in response to problems.
It would be fair to call it sick care.
It's sick care, exactly. And that's, it's funny, I've personally termed it the reactive model, in part because we are building the proactive model. And people ask me what that is. What do you mean? And it's, well, right now we have our reactive, we're not done. Okay, Apollo. Right now we have this reactive model. And what happens is when you have a real problem, you go and you get that care. He's like absolutely just looking at you.
Locking
I was
eyes.
gonna say he's trying to give you all the
He needs a
licks and
face
love.
lick.
Big boy. But when it comes to the proactive model, one of the things that happens is, again, if you're not sick enough, you get sent away, right? A
Yeah.
reactive person's going to say, hey, sorry, you're not sick enough.
Yeah.
And the
Oh, your
amount of
triglycerides are climbing up. Your blood sugar's climbing up. Oh, but you're not
it's
not
not
above this
actionable.
threshold. So
Yeah, it's
go
not
live your life.
actionable. Or, you know what, your TSH, your thyroid stimulating
gosh,
hormone, isn't out of range, and so we can't do further testing. Or, yeah, I mean, you're cramping, but like we just like don't see anything structurally wrong. So like maybe take some Miralax and have a good day. It's just the list goes on and on. I have no doubt hundreds of the people listening to this right now have experience where they feel dismissed by medical care. And the comment is that's not necessarily because the doctors are bad at what they do. It's because there's massive limitation on that side of what they do. They are there to help when certain problems arise. Insurance companies and Medicare, CMS have standard operating practices in place of this is how you can do this, right?
Yeah.
One of the best examples I can give is someone with Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. It is an autoimmune disorder that's running rampant in our society right now. And unfortunately, the only thing that a doctor can do when someone has thyroid symptoms is they can take their TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which is secreted by the pituitary gland, not the thyroid gland, in response to the thyroid. If the TSH is out of range, then they can order a full thyroid panel. If it's not out of range, they can't. Their hands are tied. If they wrote that script for you, it would get denied by your insurance and you would owe the insurance company $1,500. And the comment there is the problem is that Hashimoto's is notorious for not causing a fluctuation in TSH until the damage to the thyroid is irreversible.
Right.
And so we currently have this reactive model that hasn't adjusted policy to new illnesses and new ailments. And again, this isn't the doctors being negligent. This isn't even necessarily insurance companies doing something wrong per se. It's just policy lags. It takes time. And I could give you dozens of other examples of how our current model will dismiss people for not being sick enough. And what's interesting is, one, we want to make sure that we're thriving, not just surviving. So that's one of the pieces. But the other thing is a lot of these illnesses that we end up having to deal with, we would be able to catch them sooner.
Absolutely.
And in those cases, most of the time, lifestyle intervention would divert them, set them on a different course, prevent them, or at the very least, delay them.
Yeah.
And while we're not in a place where medicine can handle that, one of the comments is that, well, it's because we don't really have the right people in place to do that. That's not what physicians do.
Yeah.
Doctors are brilliant practitioners, but they're trained in medicine, which is really reactive. And that's not, again, meant to poo-poo that. It's just meant to realize what it actually is. What are we actually talking about?
Yeah.
Dietitians, on the other hand, we go to school for 4 years undergrad, 1,200-hour residency, 2-year master's degree in the world of preventive care, in the world of lifestyle management, in the world of motivational interviewing and habit change, right? We're the people that are in the trenches. And so one of the things that's become very clear to me is that physicians are getting bombarded with sick people, or, well, I'll say it differently. They're getting bombarded with sick people, but then they're getting bombarded further by almost sick people.
Yeah. And
they can't do anything for them, but they also have nowhere to send them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things we've got to look at is if they had somewhere to send them, they likely would.
Yeah.
That is the cousin of the reactive model of care, the proactive model of care. And right now, if you go to any major city, there may be a fast-talking dietitian. There may be a really amazing doctor that got frustrated with insurance reimbursement and went private cash pay and is trying to make a difference. There might be some proactive practitioners, but they don't exist with any consistency or reliability. Yeah. So the reactive model of care can't rely on that existing for them, which means it's not systematic.
Yeah.
And so that's been my sort of big aha in my practice. And so what we've been doing here is we are tasking ourselves with building the proactive model of care. And I believe that dietitians are the quarterback of that because of the way we build relationships with clients, because of the way we interact with people. We get to see people often and we get to go deep.
Yeah.
And as a result, we're going to catch stuff. We're going to see stuff. Within our practice, we get to do some really amazing things. We have the ability to pull labs that the patient could then bring to the physician for diagnostics. We have the ability to do various types of testing and trialing. we're the person that can point and sort of quarterback, just like a PCP is the quarterback of the reactive model. We're not trying to replace them. We're the quarterback of the proactive model. And that means sometimes we're going to send people to the reactive, and sometimes we're going to distribute people throughout the proactive model, whether they need help from a personal trainer or a therapist, or they need some additional help in the world of ST, OT, or any of the other therapy trades. You name it, right? We're able to refer as needed. And so to do that, you have to have a consistent enough presence. And that's where our franchise model, for many people listening, that might be news, but we've been working on a franchise model for a few years now. And we have 3 up and running. We're opening our 4th in May, and we're really working on finally scaling it this year, which is so exciting. We're hoping to open 6 new offices in 2024, we currently have 8. And so that's a big, whenever I say that, our admin team just goes, "Oh, Andrew." And, I have to bring them some sort of flower or dessert.
Shout out admin team.
Yeah, exactly. Appreciate you. Thanks for putting up with my delusions of grandeur. But our hope is that, just like here at Case Specific in Pittsburgh, we've developed this amazing care team, these groups of people and professionals that we work alongside with. We have a really well-built proactive model of care here.
Yeah.
And we want to basically start to build the system that will allow that to exist all over the United States.
Absolutely. It's so important. I think about friends that I have all over the country that need help with their health and wellness, or, practitioners that have patients in outlying areas that are like, "Hey, can I send people to you? Can I send people to you?" And I'm like, honestly, I think there's some value in having some face-to-face interaction. And that's why I love that we're building more of that brick and mortar franchise model, whereas, not to poo-poo any virtual healthcare, we obviously do a lot of that.
Yeah, we're 40% virtual as a company.
Yeah, but having that ability to have that face-to-face interaction, having that close proximity and having that relationship with the client where we're able to spend a little bit more time with them is so, so valuable. And I just think about so many people that I know that don't have access to that really should be able to in their local vicinity. And so that's why I'm so excited at what we're building here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And again, we've made, in 2023, that was kind of our preparation year. I mean, obviously we've been building towards this, we've been trialing it and, building the concepts, but we built a lot of infrastructure this year. Our internal trainings for dietitians, a lot of our media and branding, thanks to you and our marketing team, we've got a much clearer message, and things like this podcast, free content that's out there for the masses. This is meant to be for clients that need us, dietitians that want to work with us, and practitioners that want to join us.
Yeah.
And my hope is that over the next decade, when we think about the last 10, the next 10, I very much feel like the last 10 years were me cutting my teeth as a dietitian, gaining experience, gaining insights, becoming a successful practitioner, but then also really getting a taste of the lack of care that's out there. And as you know, becoming a reimbursement representative and starting to become very literate in reimbursement and access and equity and all those things, and working to try and improve those, which are also hurdles that need to happen if you're going to give everyone access to care. And that's why we accept Medicaid. That's why we are a practice that prides itself on being accessible to everyone.
Yes.
When we have people that don't have insurance coverage and they can't afford our reduced pocket rates. Our reduced rates, I shouldn't even say our reduced rates, our out-of-pocket rates are very cheap for what we charge, but it's because it's meant to be reduced compared to what insurance will, so that we can help people that may not have insurance. And then we have payment plans, but then we have things like the OptiLife Academy and the podcast and our YouTube and our Instagram as all this free content or very affordable content so that people can access us. So part of it's that access. But then from there, it's scaling it so that, again, physicians all over the US can start to rely on the fact that there's a dietitian they can refer to.
Yeah.
What's crazy, I read a statistic a couple of years ago, and it was the average PCP, family medicine doc, spends 60% of their patient population is seeing chronic disease. Diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, right? And when you think about that's 60% of the population that they really aren't the front line of care for. Like the intervention for that is 80% environmental. It's how you interact with your day to day. It's all the things we do.
Yeah.
And if a doctor knew that they could refer to a dietitian and that it was covered by insurance or it was a reasonable out-of-pocket cost, that would happen every time. And what's crazy, you start to hear, does that mean the proactive model would, one, provide better care to the people that need it, but then also it would make room for care for the people in the reactive model that need it. If you actually have a reason to go to the reactive model, instead of 6 months, now it's a week.
Yeah.
And so it would alleviate the burden on the reactive model of care, and it would improve the outcomes. And so you have people getting less and less sick. You have people in a better place, and
Yeah.
they're actually thriving when they're in a good place. And then they're getting to the reactive model more appropriately. And so you start to hear it's almost like our healthcare model's been operating on one engine, and it's meant to be a two-engine system.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great way of putting it. I feel like it's a great time to be in this space too, because the developments and things like AI and all of these laboratory testings, we just have so much more access, and genetic testing, we have so much more access to really do a deep dive and make medicine very personalized and data driven. So would you tell us a little bit about kind of the, I guess, the progression of medicine 1.0, 2.0, and now medicine 3.0?
Ooh, a little Peter Attia nod.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's give him props first of all, because
true.
so this is a book I'd recommend. Honestly, it's one of the first health and wellness books I would be confident with any person I know reading.
Yeah.
I get asked every week, do you have any like nutrition books you think I should read?
Cute eye roll.
my typical response is like, kind of like there's
like,
some adjacent. But
there's
it's
stuff that I like 80% of a lot of books, but there's always that 20%. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to recommend this.
And it's also like for someone like you or me, like we like to collect perspectives.
Yeah.
So like I'll read all of it, but I also know what to do with it. I know where it fits in my little mental map.
You're able to like take it with some nuance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Outlive by Peter Attia just came out last year, and it's his penance, as he says, which is hilarious, but also it's a modernized creed, and he calls it medicine 3.0. And he talks a lot about what we're talking about, what I call the proactive model. He calls medicine 3.0. And it's that proactive approach. It's not just treating something when it's already spiraled. It's finding it early, being proactive about it, leveraging lifestyle factors to delay and modify and optimize so that we can be our best self, so that we can reach what he calls health span, not just lifespan, not how long you live, but how long and how well. What is your quantity and your quality of life?
Yeah.
So first of all, that is one of the first books that I could tell anybody to read that wants to open their mind to the current state of medicine, the current state of health and wellness. It is wonderfully written, and I was floored by how balanced it was. So shout out to him and kudos to him.
I have to say some other doctors and stuff that I've asked about, hey, before I even read the book, I was like, hey, what do you think about this book, this Peter Attia guy? And across the board, I heard like 90% or above would recommend this book of all the people that I asked, and just the content that was in there. So yeah, I really appreciated that. And just, again, how he kind of explained that there's a difference between, again, there's that reactive model of care or sick care that we currently have. There's that preventative model of care, which is very much needed, right? If we look at, your genes, your family history, we're able to determine, okay, maybe there's a little bit of risk of diabetes here. Maybe there's a little risk of some autoimmune stuff. How can we really attack this at the preventative level? But then there's that like optimization or that like proactive model that I think we're really excited about. People that are like, I don't want to just prevent chronic disease. I want to have that like marginal decade of my life be as fantastic as it possibly could be. And I want to push it off as long as I could be. So health span and lifespan.
Exactly. That health span. It's such a cool thing. And so I will say that, when you say medicine 3.0, I want to make sure we give him his nod, because it's a pretty exceptional, not pretty exceptional, it's a very exceptional book.
Yeah.
And I love a lot of the language in there. But going back to what you asked, which is sort of the evolution on our end, what I liked about his book, is it kind of segues into us, is I found Peter Attia back in 2000, I'm going to say 2012, because I was maybe 13. It was really early. It was early 2010s. I was in my master's, and it was when he was actually in the keto world, and he was the fat fueled guy. And he started doing research on endurance athletes. And so even my Marathon Ready Runner's Guide, my marathon book, I have a section on keto, and I talk about how it can be used in ultra training and endurance training. It's not a necessity, but it can be used, and pros and cons. A lot of that I learned from going deep with him, listening, reading. And again, me, I've never been this like keto for life guy, but I've always felt like I'm the mediator of information. It is my job to understand all the tools in my toolbox. Yeah. And there are people that's great for. What I'll note is that, he did that as a 3-year stint of his own health and wellness, from what he reports in the book. And he was gung-ho about it. But then as he left traditional medicine and started his health and wellness proactive practice, which is basically a physician's version of what we do, he's spent the last 10 years seeing patients like I have. And it's so crazy to sit down and read a book, and we came to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened. He went from keto, and he went, ooh, it may be optimize, it might optimize, but it's not practical. It's not sustainable. How do we become more sustainable? How do we engage in a way that actually can work? How do we improve outcomes? And then we end up in this same place where he's talking about medicine 3.0, being considerate of all the things that need to take place. And we've done the same. And so what's neat is, in his book, he outlines kind of the trajectory of what Case Specific has done, which is, I saw a bunch of clients, started to bring on dietitians. We saw a bunch of clients. We dabbled in corporate wellness. We've done different things to try and impact different populations. But over time, what we've recognized is a need that most people need support. They need access to mediating information. They need to understand what's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And they need access to someone that can pace their progress towards a positive outcome.
Yeah.
And that's where we talk about how we're the Sherpas, right? We're the people that we can help guide you up the mountain. You still have to walk up the mountain. You got to participate in your own rescue, right? But we'll happily carry a bag, and we'll happily make sure that you pace yourself so that you can get there safely. And with that, along the way, we've developed a lot of skills. And so, for example, we can order labs, and some physicians have mixed feelings about it, largely because they probably don't understand what we're talking about here. But we're able to pull proactive labs that allow us to see things at a price that is so reduced.
Oh, yeah.
But from there, it's not even the proactive labs. We're able to pull those same labs that the insurance won't reimburse and might charge, just as a reference, our proactive panel. It's 46 labs. If someone asked their physician to write that script and then it got run through insurance, about 40 of them would get rejected because they weren't medically necessary. And that bill from the insurance, or from the lab group, would be somewhere around $3,500 to $4,000. And we can order all of them for $250, flat rate, guaranteed. It's not for us. We're not getting paid it.
Yeah.
You work with the lab, we get them. But then the amount of times we've gotten those because we were suspicious of something, and then we've been able to quarterback you to the right. You need to go see your OB. You need to go see your endo. You need to go see your physician.
Yes.
And then they get there with labs in hand. And now all of a sudden, instead of waiting 3 months for the appointment just to be told they need blood work, only getting part of the blood work, and then they have to get the next blood work, a year can go by and nothing's happened.
Yeah. And they're getting worse.
They're getting worse the whole time. They've gone from a proactive place to a reactive place in that time frame. And so our evolution has been realizing and almost stepping into what we can do. We are the keepers of habits, so to speak. We are the pacers of lifestyle change. And we are also the person that can help navigate and moderate. And that means sometimes being able to pull things like labs. That means knowing when to use those tools in the toolbox and then continually refining access to those things.
Yeah.
And we've now become a practice that people can come to and they can rely on. And practitioners that are, physicians and other specialists can come to us and work with us and collaborate with us. We play in the sandbox really, really well. And we're in a position to do so. And that is in the client's best interest. And it saves everybody money in the long run.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And to your point about Peter T. talking about medicine 3.0, when it got to the nutrition chapter of that book, I was ready to hate him. I was like, oh boy, let's see what he has to say about nutrition. This doctor trying to talk about nutrition. What does he got to say? And I was just really impressed and just really relieved to hear him say that nutrition is really not a one-size-fits-all approach. Yeah. And that is what case-specific nutrition is all about. You do deserve a personalized approach to your health and wellness plan because you've got individual goals and concerns and lifestyles. And so I'm just so excited for us to get to be a part of that, helping people create their own individualized health and wellness journey that makes sense for them.
Exactly.
And
that's where we're at, right? We look back 10 years. It's been lessons learned along the way. It's been trying to get better and better at what we do, realizing our role in a lot of ways, and starting to try and change the landscape. And the next 10 years are really us hitting the gas, right? This year, we're going to really open our franchise model. We're encouraging dietitians, come join us. Mm-hmm. Fellow practitioners that are proactive, preventive, that want to help people optimize, help people thrive, come join us.
Yeah.
And we're working to deliver access in every way, whether it's virtual, whether it's financial, or whether it's brick and mortar, whatever the obstacles to be seen are, we're trying to alleviate them. And I feel so fortunate to be on this journey. That's all I can really say. It's just such a cool thing to realize. And Season 4, just like the previous seasons, now that we reflect on it, should likely align a little bit with what we're doing. It's going to be a very proactive stance. It's going to be trying to help people navigate, and it's going to be connecting people with really, really elite professionals that care for a living.
So excited.
So we've got ourselves some good stuff.
So with all of that, we've got some good stuff coming up, but for those that are interested in either clients that are wanting to engage with us on that proactive model of healthcare, who are kind of sick of what they've been dealt with, through this current healthcare model, dietitians that are maybe interested in becoming a part of that, or practitioners who are excited about collaborating with us, where would you send them?
Oh, great question. Right out of the gates, I'd send them to our website, casespecificnutrition.com. We just got a makeover.
Just got a new one.
We did,
Looking
and that was a year in the making too. But if you're a client, you get to choose your nutrition journey, right? We have the performance nutrition coaching, which is more that sports performance or elite type visual. We have the nutrition optimization. It's for the data nerds or those that need the info. That's where we can pull labs, do genetic testing, whatever it is. We have healthy lifestyle change. Those are the people that need help focusing on inputs, not outcomes, changing how they move, changing how they eat, changing how they sleep, changing how they hydrate, traditional lifestyle change. And then we have relationship with food. Those are the people that may have some disordered eating or eating disorder tendencies, maybe have an obsessive relationship or a stress and perfectionist relationship with health, and they want to liberate themselves from that.
Yeah.
So if you're a client, get on our website, choose your path. Pick your office, and then get in contact with our care coordinators, and they'll check your insurance and get you set up with the right Sherpa to climb your mountain of choice, if you will. And fellow practitioners, I would say the same thing. We have our franchising and our mentoring all on the website. We have access to reaching out to us. We're always looking for referral partners and people we can send to, so that our network, the amount of times we're sending people out it's dozens and dozens every week. So please reach out. And then I'd point people really beyond just the podcast. I point them to our Instagram. We curate a lot of content. We keep people posted with what we're doing there very well. We post so many different topics and threads and recipes and tips and tricks. And it's kind of neat. Little known fact is we actually have successfully coordinated all of our dietitians contributing.
Yeah.
And so we have the dietitians that specialize in sports and specialize in clinical and functional nutrition and specialize in mindset and behavior. All of them are contributing now. So we have lots of different voices from lots of different experts. And always a shameless plug, you can follow me on Pittsburgh Dietitian on Instagram, because as you know, obviously I've been doing a lot of Mindset Mondays and Thoughtful Thursdays and nutrition tips, and they sometimes align with the case specific pretty well. So those would be our website, our Instagram, and then if you like hearing me talk, get on my Instagram, because I'm always putting stuff up there.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm really proud of what you've built and what we've built, especially when it comes to just kind of some of this free content that we're putting out there, which is just a testament to we are so committed to this mission impact and not just trying to rake in the dollars, right?
Exactly.
It's about really just trying to truly spread the health. And we're really, really intentional about what we put out there on social media, especially because we work with such a vast variety of different client types. We work with the athletes, we work with the data nerds with our Whoop watches, pointing at you over there. We're working with
the data nerd.
Those people that have kind of been in this yo-yo dieting cycle, who are kind of just sick of it all and really just trying to take a more gentle approach. We work with all of those people. And so we do take a very evidence-based and a very intentional approach to make sure that we fit the needs of all of those people. And so our website, our social media, the podcast, you at Pittsburgh Dietitian, I think those are all really good places to direct people. And I'm really excited for what we have coming up in season 4.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for listening. Please stay tuned. Our goal is to release an episode every month. It'll be, the second Monday of every month? Is that our target?
Second Monday of every month. We had to do something weird like that.
Yeah, it's the second Monday of every month. We'll release new episodes. We'll be dropping new content. And again, please reach out to us if you're interested in learning more, if you have questions or connections. Awesome. Be well.